Hello, Internet. How's everybody doing? Welcome back to Batman Arkham Knight. 10 years later, again. This time is going to be Batgirl. Batgirl with the challenge maps. I'm late because I was watching Superman stuff. I know, right? Batman guy watching Superman stuff. I will say this. I don't really talk about the Man of Steel very much. But what I appreciate about the past Superman actors is how they're all friends. A lot of people ask me, do the Batman actors get along? Do they hang out? I'm like, I don't really know, because when Michael Keaton has done conventions, he's by himself. When Val Kilmer did conventions, he was by himself. Kevin and Will would do conventions together, like, because their time on Batman Beyond. But I don't ever remember a panel involving Kevin, the guy from the Batman, Diedrich Bader, Troy Baker, all those guys being on a panel the way that the Superman actors constantly do panels together. It's almost like the Superman actors are very genuine, and they're kind of like Power Ranger actors in a sense. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, they all get along. They're all really friendly in real life. And what binds them together is the different versions of Superman that they played. And what I find very interesting about the Superman actors, like Dean and Tim and things like that, is they're not really rude to each other based on the fact that one was an animated Superman and the other was a television or a film. Like, just seeing Dean and Brandon Routh and Tim Daly and George Newburn and now Tyler and even Tom all get along and just hang out on stage and talk about, like, different Superman stuff. It's very different compared to how... And it's funny about the Batman actors, but the Batman actors are always separated. They never hang out. Even when Kevin was alive, they never did panels together. You know, because of that whole stoic loner thing, right? But the Superman actors, they all hang out. I find that really interesting. So during the break, I watched, like, I don't know what it was, like 3 or 4 different Superman panels over the past, like, there was a panel when Henry Cavill and stuff, like, became Superman, but he wasn't there. And I know a lot of people like to throw shade at Henry, but Henry lives over in London, right? So most of these conventions where Dean and Brandon Routh and Tim Daly and George Newburn and stuff are, like, all, like, they're the most common Supermen to appear on the panels. Brandon Routh especially, and Dean. Like, Dean, they go all over the place. Tyler has recently joined the group. Like, the most recent, like, Power Ranger is now touring with everybody, and that's really fun. Tom Welling does it most of the time, and Tom is the biggest out of everybody. Like, Tom is huge. Tom is probably the tallest Superman of the past Supermen, I believe. And he's also a farmer in real life, so the dude is built. Like, he's stacked. Because, you know, he doesn't do the TV thing very much. But he's the only Superman actor not to wear the suit.
Simulation activated.
And that's always kind of a heartbreaking thing to me. It's like, he didn't wear the suit. He didn't want to. He had a no-suit clause. He didn't want to wear it. Even after 3 or 4 seasons, he refused to wear it. I was like, wow. I thought there was, like, some type of copyright involved with not wearing the Superman suit. I had no idea that Tom just did not want to wear the suit. There was no clause. There was no, like, you know, we can't use the Superman suit because of the upcoming Superman Returns thing. There was none of that. Tom just didn't want to wear it. That, to me, is kind of funny. And the other Superman actors to this day make fun of Tom. And of course, Dean had it the worst of everybody because apparently his Superman suit was all spandex. So things felt very uncomfortable for him on the set. Because, you know, he's just basically walking around in a skin-tight bodysuit with a pair of, like, red underwear on his, you know, down below. It made things very uncomfortable, which is kind of funny. And I'm really starting to like that Tyler guy who played Superman on that Superman CW show. I don't know if I really cared for his character in when he was playing Superman. I thought he was okay. But the actor is a lot of fun to hear him describe events, like, at conventions. And the fact that he's willing to do conventions is just... it's pretty incredible, actually. You know? He has that same energy of, do you guys remember the Power Ranger actor from, Dino Charge? Who, has a YouTube channel, I can't remember how to say his name. He has a very, very difficult way to pronounce his name. But he has a YouTube channel, and he talks about, like, all his time as a Power Ranger and stuff like that, and he's, like, I wouldn't say he's the newest, but he was, like, the most recent Power Ranger from 10 years ago or whatever, you know? And he has his YouTube channel that he started with his brother, I believe. Something like that. So Tyler, to me, in terms of, like, hanging out with all these other Supermen who are, like, in their late 40s, early 50s, and I believe Tim Daly and George are much older than that. The only thing I would like to know about the League of Supermen, as they call themselves, they actually have a name for their group, which is kind of funny if you think about it. And I was just thinking, man, it would be really great if all these past Batman actors would actually get together and have panels together, but I don't think they ever will because, you know, Batman is a character that's not really known for hanging out with people, right? It'd be funny if he did, though.
You're gonna die.
But, nah, that's not gonna happen, obviously. I think it would be funny if they did do that, though. But I was having a lot of fun watching these panels, and I'm like, wow, these guys are really down to earth. Like, they really understand not only Superman, but also they're really kind to each other. I'm not used to seeing that. Like, I have my own version of what I feel like Hollywood is like, and these guys are just like a stark contrast to how Hollywood is. They're just like having fun. They all played Superman at different times. I really thought a lot of these guys would kind of be looked down on, especially the animated Supermen. But everybody's just like, they all donned the S on their chest, and they had the cape in some capacity, and that is what connects them all together. And Brandon Routh is a really funny guy, like talking about his time as Superman and things like that. It's very interesting. But I really like Tim Daly, the Superman that was the first animated Superman, 1996 through 1999. What I find interesting about Tim is always getting himself in trouble with talking about certain things because, you know, he's kind of like the dirty old man of the group. So whenever Tim gets the microphone at these conventions, you're kind of like, uh-oh, because you don't know what Tim Daly is going to say. But George is just as bad. And these are the animated guys that, you know, were voicing these characters for Saturday morning cartoons, but then when you remember the Thundercats actors of the 80s, those guys were really, really dirty and perverted and stuff like that as voice actors. So, but to see Tim and George joke about this kind of stuff, it's really funny to me. But what I want to know is, I've always watched these panels. I never hear a question about why did George replace Tim. And for the life of me, I've never found a clear reason as to why Tim was replaced as Superman for the Justice League, the animated series. Like, why did he lose the role? Because he came back and he voiced Superman on several occasions for animated movies with Kevin Conroy. That wasn't George, that was Tim. George Newburn did come back every once in a while whenever Tim couldn't, but I don't know, it's just like, I don't know the story behind why Tim wasn't Superman in Justice League, the animated series, and they found a voice actor who sounded similar to Tim. But it wasn't Tim Daly, it was George Newburn. Because when, obviously, like, Tim didn't have any bad blood with the Superman the animated series because he wasn't playing Superman when his video game came out in 2003. Like, George Newburn was the Superman on television. So, the question is, what happened between Bruce Timm and all these other people when Justice League was in development that they recast their Superman when apparently he was their first pick to play Superman, according to Tim. Tim was on a show called Wings, And he came in and he did a voice, and like at first he thought, you know, I'm going to try out for Superman, so I need to do this very big voice. And just like with Kevin, Andrea Romano just wanted the actors to sound like themselves, like just to read the line with their voice, voices with character, right? So Tim didn't do like a crazy, like very I'm Superman, you know, type of thing that most people do, like get down in the diaphragm. He just spoke normally. And apparently, according to Bruce Timm and some other people, he was their #1 first draft pick to play Superman. That's who Andrea had in mind when she heard Tim's voice. So, why did he get replaced? And I like I said, I've watched several Superman conventions over the years, and this question is never asked by the fans. Might be a touchy question, I don't know. But like I said, there's no bad blood between Tim and Warner Brothers, obviously, because he's reprised his role as Superman a couple times when another actor was playing Superman with the ensemble group. You know? So it's just, it's interesting to me. Like, what caused that replacement? Because it's not like he had Val Kilmer syndrome. Like, because, you know, Val Kilmer, you know, R.I.P., had little prima donna issues, like, which is very well known by people. Like, he was kind of a nightmare to work on set with on Batman Forever. And that was the reason why he was replaced with George Clooney. And even Chris O'Donnell has collaborated on this story over the years, and some other people that actually knew of Val is Val and Joel Schumacher just weren't tight. They weren't a really good fit. They clashed a lot. And there are lots of stories with Val Kilmer doing really well on other movies, but just in general with Joe Schumacher, there was just something about those two actors and director that just did not work. But for the life of me, I can't find a clear reason why George ended up stepping into the boots of Superman, and Tim, you know, who was so well loved, ended up giving up his role to George. I don't get it. And I'm just fascinated by it. I don't, you know, mean any bad blood or anything by it. I'm just curious, like, what's the story behind it? Because I've been trying to find out for years, and I haven't really had any real breakthroughs with that. It's just a, you know, just a personal question that I've been thinking about for a long time. Like, how in the world did this happen? Because usually you find out, oh, there's like bad blood, obviously, between the cast, or maybe, you know, Bruce Timm and Tim Daly were going at it or something. But nope, there's none of that. No drama behind the scenes. Just kind of got replaced. Maybe he was busy with other projects. I don't know. And the greatest conundrum to me is the fact that he reprised his role for that video game. It should have been George Newburn playing Superman, because he was the next voice of Superman. And how it worked, now Warner Brothers explained it to me years ago, from my WB contact who was in WB Animation, is if you are in your tenure and you are the voice of the character, whether a video game role comes up or like some type of commercial or whatever, a book on tape, you are the voice of that character. It's just expected because the studio wants people to hear your voice as Superman or Batman or whoever you are. You know, they didn't like to go and recast people to do different things because the audiences recognize that voice as that particular character. But the thing with George and Tim is they basically cut up the role during the 2000s. Like, Tim was still appearing as Superman at the theme parks. Like, his voice could still be found on Superman the Ride at Six Flags. I don't know if you guys knew that, but that was Tim's voice. And then over on the other side of the park of Six Flags was George Newburn's voice at the Hall of Justice and stuff like that. So the Superman the Ride still featured voices of the Superman cast from the 1996 show. And then just over a little ways away, especially if you were at the New Jersey Six Flags, or the Six Flags New England, one of those, you would hear both Tim and George at the theme park. Whereas when it came to Batman's voice, you would always hear Kevin as the voice of Batman at the theme park. and in commercials and things like that. But for a lot of people, because Tim and George sounded so similar, both actors did stuff for Superman throughout the 2000s, which a lot of people don't know that. I don't know, I just find it kind of fascinating, you know? It's like, oh, wow, that's interesting. Like, why is that? This is fascinating. Whoops. Oh, Batgirl's gonna die soon. Oh, well. I mean, we already got 3 stars with Batgirl, so it's not that big a deal. Okay, so she can punch him because he's electric, but... Okay, that was interesting. There's no reason why the other characters couldn't have... Ow. Broken weapons the way that Batgirl, Batman, and Azrael can. Even Jason can't break weapons, I don't think. He just shoots people. But breaking weapons is so fun. Oops. The question is, who's going to kill Batgirl? Will it be a gun? Will it be sparklers? Probably sparklers. It's a shield. Yeah, I thought it was very interesting about that. Is seeing the Superman actors like interact and hang out with each other is really cool. I really enjoy that about the panels, because I've watched Batman panels at different conventions over the years, and like I said, it's always solo. Bruce Greenwood by himself, Kevin Conroy by himself, unless Will is there. If it's a Batman Beyond panel, then they're both there. But I never remember a panel of Batman, you know? Maybe you guys can help me out with that, but I don't recall a Comic-Con or a game convention where there's literally a panel of past Batman actors the way that these Superman actors hang out with each other. I can't think of it. Like I said, my only other thing that I've noticed over the years is how Power Ranger actors hang out each other, you know, and they, long after their shows are over, they're just kind of chilling with each other. So the fact that the Superman actors are just so friendly with each other, it's really eye-opening, you know? And I wish that Henry was a part of it, but again, as Dean and Tim have explained, and Brandon, Henry Cavill lives over in London, and sometimes when a few of the actors go overseas, like Dean, Brandon, Tim Daly, and sometimes Tom will go overseas, and then Henry might show up for one of their panels or something like that, but I don't know why he doesn't really do it, but it would make sense because he's over in London. So since most of these Comic-Cons in America take place in things like California, Washington, Nevada, New York City, things like that, it's kind of difficult for a guy who's not currently playing Superman, who's not in the States, to come over. It'd be very interesting to see if David is going to start touring, though. You know? Like, based on how much people like David, will David become a part of the League of Supermen, as they call themselves? Like, is he actually going to start touring with Comic-Cons and stuff like that? Once he's done with his run of Superman? That will be the interesting thing, because I didn't know that Tyler was such a down-to-earth guy. I had no idea. Because I didn't really like his Superman. No offense, it didn't work for me. I liked some of the costumes that he got to wear in his show, but I always thought he looked kind of goofy with the costume that he was wearing, because he was basically wearing a muscle suit. It was very off-putting to me. I'm just kind of like, yeah. I don't know, it looked like the super suit didn't really fit him that well. I liked him when he was on the Supergirl show because he was more relaxed, you know? But the costume that they had him wear was like a mixture of like Henry Cavill's like actual muscles, but it was a muscle suit. And he was even talking about how like he didn't really like the suit because he couldn't breathe in the thing. And these are the kind of stories that I like hearing, because it makes you feel like, wow, these actors are more down to earth. Just like I've always really liked Michael Keaton as Batman, not just his performance, but also the different Comic-Cons that he's gone to, and he talks about how much he hates the suit. How much the suit became such a part of his character because of, you know, being claustrophobic. Like, he didn't like being trapped inside that rubber, like, tomb, as he called it. Because the thing would, like, he'd sweat to death inside there, and just, it wasn't a fun experience for him. And the fact that Tyler has a very similar story with his Superman costume, except for the 1940s costume that he got to wear a little bit. It's just interesting to me. I like these little nuanced stories. I think they're cool. You can't wait until August so you can have girls' night? Okay. That's cool. Oh, jeez. Alright. Hey guys and gals, if you could, is that the shorts playlist? Yeah. I need you guys to run that, and then I'm gonna have to make a YouTube short. Or we're not gonna clear 1,000 for the hour. I don't believe. Yeah, it's kind of funny, like, playing those Superman games lately has got me into, like, really watching these different Superman actors. But I had no idea all the stuff that went in for stuff like Lois and Clark. And how every Superman actor has a different way of interpreting the Superman character. Like, I'll give you an example. So, Brandon Routh, he wanted, when he did Superman Returns, he was supposed to be essentially playing Christopher Reeve's version of Superman. So he studied Christopher Reeves intently for his performance to try to, like, continue that character's story. But then over the course of the production of the movie, the story changed a little bit, where technically it was a part of Christopher Reeve's Superman, but then it changed. So then his Clark became different. It wasn't just him pretending to be a klutz and things like that. As Brandon Routh put it, it was like an alien excited to be the role of a human. Which, if you go back and you watch Superman Returns and you see... Okay, that's weird. You see how Brandon Routh portrays Clark Kent in Superman. There's an awkwardness to it that wasn't found with the Christopher Reeves version of Clark Kent, which is kind of goofy and, you know, he's just trying to move suspicion away from him being Superman. But Brandon Routh's version of Clark was completely different. It's like he was excited to act like a human because he was glad to be back on Earth. And with Dean Cain's portrayal of Superman, like, his Clark Kent was completely different. Because it was more of a show where Lois and Clark were investigative reporters. So Dean's Clark is actually kind of cool. Kind of like the Smallville Clark Kent. You know, he's not like this bumbling idiot. He's a very intelligent press person. And his view of Clark and Superman's relationship was different than previous actors. Where Dean viewed Superman as, you know, he's really Clark Kent, and Superman is what he's able to do with his powers, but at the end of the day, he's Clark. He was raised, you know, in Smallville by human parents, and he's adopted the ways of being human, so his personality is not Kal-El, like the Snyderverse or something like that, where he's Kal-El, or Cal. He's Clark, so it wasn't just like, okay, we're gonna put you in the skin-tight costume for Superman. But, like, his Clark got to be more fleshed out than a lot of other people's Clark Kents. Because he didn't have to act like he was a joke. He was just kind of like this guy from the Midwest who was out of his element in the big city. And there was an awkwardness to Clark, but also there was a strength to his journalism. Like, he's a very good writer. Like, at least how his character's portrayed. And he also tries to do as much as he can as Clark without bringing Superman into the show, which maybe was for budget reasons, but if you ever went back and watched Lois and Clark, you can see that his Superman, as Clark Kent, would lower his glasses on occasion, and, like, if Clark happened to be in the middle of a robbery or something, he would actually stop the criminals as Clark Kent without, like, bringing suspicion to himself by using his heat vision, lowering his glasses, and frying their tires. You know, a very Batman move, but as Clark, it was kind of interesting. Or, you know, he might get some bad guys trapped in a room, and then with his super strength, he would crush the doorknob so they couldn't get out. And then the police would come and arrest them, and it would look like Superman was on the scene, but the only person there was Clark. So you saw that kind of stuff a lot with Clark Kent. His Clark Kent was actually kind of cool. And I can't really think of any Clark Kents that we've had in the movies like that. But then came Tim Daly. So the Superman show, the animated series, came out in 1996. That was 3 years after Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman. So Tim Daly combined his version of Superman from the portrayal of Christopher Reeves and Dean Cain. And with his Clark Kent, when he was speaking with Bruce Timm and stuff, he wanted to make Clark not a bumbling idiot. He wanted to make him a cool reporter guy, kind of like Dean's. And if you go back and you watch the first animated series of Superman, you'll notice that Clark Kent is not an idiot in that either. He's pretty cool. And so we can all kind of thank Dean for that, because he kind of changed Clark Kent from this bumbling idiot to just this normal guy that has superpowers. So the Clark Kent that we got with the big broad shoulders and the blue suit from the animated series, if you go back and watch episodes of that show, you'll notice that Clark Kent is not really a bumbling fool like the Christopher Reeves version, which again was all disguised, right? His real personality was Superman, and he was playing Clark. Whereas both Dean, Tom, and Brandon, like, Clark Kent was an integral part of the Superman process. It wasn't just like, oh, okay, I'm just totally doing this. You need to go downstairs, buddy? Buddy gotta go downstairs. Come on. Yeah. Smart boy. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Yeah, I didn't really like what they did with Jor-El in David Cornsweet's Superman, and I also don't like the way that they did the Kryptonians in Zack Snyder's universe. I don't think that... I understand that people like to change things to keep things fresh, but I didn't like the army of Kryptonians as, like, basically Amazon warriors in the Zack Snyder universe, which apparently the Amazons were supposed to be descendants of the Kryptonians. Never really liked that. I thought that was kind of a weird thing, so I'm kind of glad that we didn't get to see the rest of Snyder's vision, because the Amazons would have been essentially the super-powered women of Krypton that ended up settling on Earth, and then that would take away from the whole, you know, Amazons are descended from the Greek gods and stuff like that, so I never really liked that original idea that Zack had, because it just shows that the only comics that he really read, which I think he's been pretty clear on this, has been the Frank Miller Batman books. Like, I think that Zack would have been a great Batman director. I don't know if he was a great Superman director. He gave us a really cool Man of Steel movie, you know, and really awesome Dragon Ball Z fights, and I love the Snyder Cut, like the 4-hour Justice League movie. But some of his other stuff outside of Wonder Woman, I don't think he did Aquaman. I don't know. But it really felt like he didn't really understand these superhero characters outside of, like, maybe a few of them. Like, out of an ensemble group, if you're doing a Justice League movie, I think that you should be able to understand all the characters associated in the Justice League. And I don't like what he did with the Flash. I don't like what he... Well, I liked what he did with Cyborg. I liked his Cyborg, I liked his Batman, and I liked his Wonder Woman, but I'm still mixed on his Superman and his Flash. And I didn't see enough of his Martian Manhunter. I would have loved to see his Green Lantern, but, you know. Obviously, that didn't happen. Although, that's Warner Brothers' fault. But I like the more traditional stuff with Krypton. Like, where Krypton is just like this utopia civilization, and his father is just a scientist, and everything just goes bad, like the world gets destroyed, you know? There was no civil war or any of that other stuff that led to the destruction of Krypton, like in Zack Snyder's universe. There was more to, like, just simple stuff, like something happened with Krypton, there was all these earthquakes, and it exploded. It was pretty straightforward. Didn't need to add all that something to it. It's a very simplified story. Sometimes the simplified stories and reasonings, they work better than the more complicated stuff because it kind of changes the way that the characters are interpreted and stuff like that. I don't really like that. Just like, I am not a fan of making Bruce Wayne's parents mob bosses. I did not like that about Telltale, and I know that they were working on like some Batman movie that they were going to incorporate that more. You know, as an Elseworlds movie, that's fine, but to make that type of change to the Batman mythos, I don't like it, because the reason that Martha and Thomas Wayne's story about them being these good people that were gunned down for no reason, it's a very compelling thing, and also it shows why Bruce Wayne goes a little crazy as a kid, is because he's trying to find a reason for why they were gunned down. If they were mob bosses, then, I mean, it's a pretty clear-cut reason why they eventually were killed by a rival mob boss. It loses its substance. The randomness of the horrible act of violence that creates Batman is a very important part of who he is. If you give a reason for why his parents were killed, I think that diminishes his character significantly. I really do. So the same thing with Superman. When you take Jor-El and you make Jor-El like the king of planet Vegeta or something like that, I think that kind of, you know, adds some smirches to Superman that shouldn't be there. You know? That's just me. You know, other people probably have other things, but for me it doesn't work. It's like that one random act of violence in Crime Alley is what shapes Bruce Wayne to become the vigilante Batman later on. You know, it was like the psychological trauma and the survivor's guilt that he felt, as well as, I like how in most interpretations of the character, the crime goes unsolved, and he never figures out why that happened, but he channels his anger, and he tries his best to make sure that it never happens to anyone else, like another child, that random act of violence that ruined his life. That's a really great part of his character. So when they're like, okay, well, Thomas Wayne was a mob boss, that's why he was gunned down by Rupert Thorne or something like that. It's like, no, don't do that. That's stupid. Like, we don't need that. It's a good thing that the Waynes were good people that helped out the poor and, you know, did everything they could while they were alive, because it shows that part of Bruce Wayne's personality as he's basically continuing his parents' legacy. If they were just doing all that stuff to save face or, you know, to look good in the public eye to hide their dubious activities, that just ruins their characters. And I don't know if Matt Reeves' Batman was doing that or not. I believe he was. Not sure, though. I kind of wish I knew what the script of the Batman 2 was about. I'd love to get my hands on that and sink my teeth into it. But chance of that happening is not likely. For one, I don't have WB contacts anymore. They're all at different studios and things like that. They run in different circles. But also, James Gunn is apparently really hard to get leaks out of, compared to, you know, the previous sloppy regimes at Warner Brothers that they weren't very good with security and preventing leaks from happening. Even though I don't personally like James Gunn, I will admit that he runs a pretty tight ship, because very few cracks leak out of Warner Brothers thanks to his involvement. Good or bad. It keeps the public guessing, like, okay, this is where we're going to go from here or whatever, but it's harder to get a word out edgewise. Boom. Ta-da. Okay, that's a weird flip animation. James Gunn pulled a Superman? Oh, you mean with the Planet Vegeta thing? Yeah, but both Superman directors... Zack Snyder was heavily inspired by Dragon Ball Z with the fight between Zod and Superman. And apparently, like, James Gunn is also a big Toriyama fan, and he has some Dragon Ball Z influences in the movie. Planet Vegeta is heavily inspired by a planet in the movie, as well as Superman gets Yamcha posed. Like, literally. I don't like that they Yamcha pose Superman. I can understand that it's the first time that he's fought a, you know, really strong character that's in his weight class for once or something like that. But the Yamcha pose wasn't necessary, as well as I don't think they should have had that in the promotional material, because it makes Superman look like he's weak. And again, this coming from a Batman guy, I'm not even a big Superman fan whatsoever. I'm starting to appreciate the Superman character more, and I like how all the Superman actors are friendly with each other. I think that's, you know, very charming and very Superman-like, the fact that all these guys are really nice to each other. Years ago, it was like 13, 14, 15 years ago, Tim Daly had a YouTube channel. And he did a collab with Dean Cain, Brandon Routh, his son, Andrea Romano, and like a few other people. And they called it the League of Supermen. And it was just stupid, you know, it's just a YouTube video, but basically it makes all the actors look like they're insane because they believe they're Superman, like Dean and Brandon and things like that. And they're inducting Sam Daly, who played Superman in Flashpoint Paradox, which he was only Superman for about 10 minutes. I don't know if he played Superman again after that. I don't know if Sam has appeared as Superman again. Maybe he did. But in the spoof, all three of the guys who played Superman, whether it was live action on TV like Dean, or in the movies like Brandon, or, you know, as a animated cartoon like Tim, all three of those guys really believe they're Superman. Like, and the ending has Sam acting like Clark. So it's just, you don't see Batman actors joke around like that. So it's, the Superman guys are kind of fun. The reason why I have the same approach as Kevin does, and I don't want to, you know, insult anybody, but I believe what Kevin said about Superman. Superman is a very boring, bland, and just not as exciting of a character as Batman. Batman has a lot of complexities and layers to him. Superman is this dude from the Midwest who happens to have superpowers because he's really an alien. But he was raised like that of a Midwestern, you know, person. And what makes his character stand out usually is it's the boring guy from the Midwest ends up getting out of his comfort zone and gets brought into the East Coast. And the interaction between him and that climate or like environment change is what makes Superman interesting. Is he's got hometown, you know, conservative values, and he works in a big blue city, basically. Whereas Batman has psychological complexities, he has human complexities. Like Superman, very few things outside of the Timverse Superman can defeat Superman, you know, outside of Kryptonite. So he's pretty much, the only vulnerabilities he has is his secret identity and the people that are close to him, like his mother's father's girlfriend, his son in some versions. Whereas Batman is a flesh and blood person that can be killed at any time. He's vulnerable every night he goes out and does his Batman stuff. You know, he's not a metahuman. He doesn't have any types of real ways of making sure he's going to survive every night except for his wits, his skills, and his training. Whereas Superman, you know, Superman has all his powers and he can do pretty much anything. And every once in a while he might run into a problem that not necessarily he can't handle, but he's going to struggle with it a little bit. And depending on the version of Superman that you've seen, sometimes he's super OP, and other times he's, you know, been power scaled down a little bit to try to make the character more relatable. But Kevin was spot on for me, where he says that Superman is just a boring, like, character that is just unrelatable to most comic book fans. And I really believe what Kevin said about that. Because I have a similar opinion. I think Superman is an important character because he shows the contrast between light and dark. Superman is a very optimistic and bright and happy and hopeful character, as well as he inspires hope for people. Batman is a very dark, depressing, lonely, sad, but also very compassionate and strong-willed human being that does whatever he can to make sure that no 8-year-old ever loses their parents to a maniac with a gun. You know, that's his core mission in life. Whereas Superman is just this guy from the Midwest with superpowers. And the only thing that he struggles with, in some versions, is actually ending up finding a wife because, you know, he's Superman. It's kind of hard. And then once he has a wife, the danger that now revolves in Superman's life is how does he protect his family from his enemies? Because there's not really much that the bad guys can do to Superman to kill him, but when you incorporate his family into the picture, like his wife and kids or, you know, his parents, that's one of the things that they really made audiences resonate with Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman in the 90s, is the bad guys would somehow find out Clark's identity, and then usually they would die, but they would discover it, and how they would get to Superman was they would go through his alter ego, Clark. So they would target those closest to Superman. Which was pretty smart if you think about it. But for the most part, Superman doesn't really have any vulnerabilities. Except for the people that he's close to, that's it. Oh, snap. Batgirl, you failed. So we gotta do that again. And I'm not doing that to dump on Superman. I think Superman is a very important character. And I think that, you know, he's a very huge pillar of the DC universe in both comics and media in general. So Superman has a very important role. I just relate more to the Batman character than I do Superman. That's all. Like, Batman, for me, would be a more fun character to play than Superman. Because Superman can do just about anything. Dang it! Meh. Gotta do it again. And thank you, Alpha, for the super chat before. Oh, wait. They still gave me the star? Well, that's nice of them. Yeah, because I don't want to do that again.
Simulation complete.
Yeah, I appreciate what Superman stands for. And I think that he's a very, like, strong pillar character. I just don't personally like Superman that much. Like, I like Dean's version of Superman. I like Brandon Routh's version. And I like Tim Daly. And I don't know if I like George Newburn's version of Superman because we don't really get to see his personal life. Like, does anybody remember outside of the Christmas episode of Justice League, what did we get to see of Superman's life outside of costume? Like, in Superman the Animated Series, we get to see little elements of Clark's life, like how he shaves and what he makes for breakfast, or what he does on his away time, hanging out with his parents. What does George Newburn's Superman do in both Justice League and Justice League Unlimited, outside of hanging out with Kara, who he meets in the Superman Animated Series? Like, what does he do? I don't remember a very, like, human or personal connection of Justice League Unlimited Superman with just his personal life at all. I don't think he had one. I don't even think him and Lois were an item in the DCAU. I don't believe so. I could be wrong, but I don't ever remember, outside of the Justice Lords, Lois and Cal, maybe, but I don't remember main continuity Justice League Superman actually being in a relationship with Lois. She seemed pretty broken up that he died in that one episode with the Toy Man, but other than that, I can't really ever think of like a huge thing between them. For the life of me, I can't remember. You just watched Christopher Reeve's Superman? That's great. Okay. Yeah, we're gonna have to... What time is it? That's not good. Alrighty, so I'm gonna have to film a cat short, because we're not doing well. Yeah, we're not doing well at all. If you guys could do me a solid and watch the shorts, I have to go make a YouTube short real quick and get that up before midnight, because we're not going to clear 1,000 for the hour. But let me look at Alpha's comment before I take a quick break. They did that, also with the Waynes being corrupt. Yeah, I have all the Spider-Man actors... done panels together at conventions before. I can talk about this. Christopher Daniel Barnes, the Spider-Man of the 90s, and Josh Keaton, and what's his name? Josh Keaton, Christopher Daniel Barnes, and the guy from Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends have done work. They've done stuff together. Along with Neil Patrick Harris, there's been a couple Spider-Man panels where there's been a couple Spider-Man actors, like previously, where they got together and they talked. Christopher Daniel Barnes, the Spider-Man of the 90s, is really, like, tight with the voice actor of Spider-Man from the 80s, as well as Josh Keaton. Like, all three of those guys are pretty tight. Like, they hang out. They all live in around the same area. I think they're all in California. And they've also done, like, guest starring roles and stuff. Like, Josh and Christopher Daniel Barnes, they did the Edge of Time Spider-Man game together, where Josh Keaton played the Peter Parker role, and Christopher played the 2099 Spider-Man. Although in the previous game, Shattered Dimensions, I believe Christopher played Noir Spider-Man, I think. And Josh played Ultimate Spider-Man. And the 80s Spider-Man was there too, but I don't remember. And then Neil Patrick Harris played Amazing Spider-Man. But I don't remember who played who played 2099. Maybe it was the Spider-Man His Amazing Friends Spider-Man played 2099 in Shattered Dimensions. Because I'm pretty sure Barnes was Noir, Ultimate Spider-Man was Josh, Amazing was Neil Patrick Harris, so then that just leaves 2099, which I believe was the guy from Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends in the 80s. I believe so. Yeah, I believe so. Alright, so anyway, I gotta bounce real quick because I need to make a YouTube short, or my channel's not going to have 1,000 views an hour. So, if you guys want to help out, I strongly suggest you guys watch the short, and I'm going to go make a short, because I need to, or my channel is going to be in bad shape. So the short is up. If you guys in the mods can push that, that'd be great. So you guys were asking, is there really no panels where there were past Batman actors getting together and talking the way that the Superman actors do? And there is no Batman panels. I just scoured YouTube just for fun. Your closest panel of Batman was, on occasion over the years, Kevin and Will from Batman Beyond, and Kim Possible would do panels with Batman, and Kevin was very gracious and very kind to Will, and they would reminisce. Basically, the panel was supposed to be about like Batman through the generations or whatever. It was just Will and Kevin, and they were just basically talking about Batman Beyond quite a bit. So it doesn't really count. It's kind of a bummer, but I mean, that's just how it is. Batman actors just really don't want to hang out with other actors, it looks like. It just seems to be the case. I mean, look in my case. I'm a Batman YouTuber. How often do I actually hang out with other YouTubers? Not very often. I just don't want to. I do my own thing, and you know, yeah, I'm known for doing lots of Batman content over the past like 18 years, but do I have a big network of friends? No, not really. If I was asked to do an Arkham panel or something like that, I would probably do it. But I mean, not really tight with all these people. Except for maybe AV. I know him. But even he doesn't really interact with a lot of people. He's very, very quiet. But like I said, I would be willing to. Like if there was like a 20-year thing or whatever, like, hey, a celebration of 20 years of Arkham or something like that. And we want you to come to some panel and we're going to get different content creators or whatever. Yeah, I would do it because, you know, I'm one of the grandfathers of the community, but other than that, not really. It's not something that I would be super interested in doing, you know. But I think there just is a certain way that Batman channels are, and like Batman voice actors and things like that, that they just don't all get together and hang out. Crap, did I get hit again? Shoot, I did. More accurate. Yeah. I guess so. Yeah. Maybe if I was a Superman channel, but there's no way to be a Superman channel. I hate to say this, but there's not enough Superman content. Batman has had, the past 30, even 40 years, there's been a plethora of Batman content. TV, video games, movies, not just comic books. Superman's had a handful of stuff. Sorry, but after the Christopher Reeve Superman, you had some Super Friends stuff, which was an ensemble show. 1988, you had the Ruby Spears Superman cartoon that lasted for like 20 episodes, I believe, or 12, 10 or, yeah, it was like either 12 or 20. It's a decent animated series about Superman. It's pretty good, I like it. So that's one. You had Superman, the animated series, go on for 2 years. That's another Superman show. Lois and Clark, New Adventures of Superman with Dean Cain. 3. Smallville went on for 10 years, and that was, you know, number 4. You had a Superman ensemble show called Superman and the Legion of Superheroes, so that'd be 5. I don't really count Justice League as a solo Superman show. That's an ensemble show, just like the Batman season 4 and 5 were ensemble shows. What else for Superman did you have? A handful of Superman games. Superman Apocalypse. Superman 64, which we don't talk about. Death and Return of Superman, 1994. Superman on NES. Superman on Atari. Superman in the arcade was good. Superman Returns. Man of Steel. That's it for the Superman games. So, I mean, Batman's just like... I can't even name all the Batman stuff over the past 40 years. There's so much of it. There's so much. Superman had, like, in the past 40 years, which is a shame that Warner Brothers did this, but it's true, is Superman in 40 years has only had 10 projects in 40 years. You know how insane that is? That's just messed up. 40 projects in 10... or, excuse me. 10 projects in 40 years for Superman. That's nuts. For someone who was like the first ever superhero, he's treated so badly by his parent company. And it's true, too. Like, Batman is the poster child of DC because he's more relatable, but Superman should have had a lot more content over the past 40 years than he has. But it just shows you the type of company that Warner Brothers really is, though. When things don't go well for them, they just throw in the towel. If you break your combo, that's it. Wow. If you think about it, with the whole Superman thing, look at what DC did and Warner Brothers did with the Zack Snyder universe. When that didn't start to perform very well, they basically did a soft reboot. They tried to keep things going, but they couldn't really keep things going because it didn't work out. Same thing happened with Christopher Reeve's Superman. When his Superman movies weren't doing well anymore, they pulled the plug. And then it was years before another Superman movie was even thought of. That's why in 1993, when they did the Lois and Clark thing, that sparked interest in Superman again. And Warner Brothers was like, we need to jump on this and get a high-profile director to make a Superman movie. And they contacted Tim Burton. And Tim Burton was going to do Superman Lives with Nicolas Cage as Superman. And then because of that, well, they couldn't have Lois and Clark stay on the air anymore, and there was already budget concerns about Lois and Clark, so they pulled the whole Superman or the superhero embargo nonsense. And that was the end of Lois and Clark, in favor of Nicolas Cage's Superman that never saw the light of day. But they canceled a show that was doing pretty solid in the ratings by 1990, what was it, 7 or 1998? And then Superman Lives was supposed to come out, I think, 99 or, like, maybe 1999, 1998. And it didn't make it past the planning stages, obviously, but they thought about it. That's why we had that weird cliffhanger in Season 4 of Lois and Clark, though, with the Super Baby. Ah! Oh, DC's always planned ahead. No. Even before Zack Snyder, DC's always planned ahead. When Superman Returns came out, they planned on another Superman movie. They planned on a Teen Titans movie. A Justice League Mortal movie, which was weird. It was very weird. Have I ever told you guys about Justice League Mortal? The thing with Arnie Hammer or whatever. Arnold Hammer as Batman. They had a Mexican guy playing Superman. A woman from Greek descent playing Wonder Woman. Somebody played Aquaman. I don't really remember who. But they were doing a vast departure of Justice League Mortal that would have incorporated Brother Eye, I believe. And Chris Nolan was the one that killed that movie. Because Chris Nolan didn't want another Batman project that wasn't his to be, you know, greenlighted. So he killed that movie. Now, it would have been a very strange Justice League movie, but we would have gotten a Justice League movie by 2011, I believe. Something like that. It's going to be very weird. But we almost got it.
Try and hurt me now. You ready for a shock? No.
Oops.
Wake up. Just try and hit me, I dare you.
She has no gadgets?
You're better than this. Come on, hit me.
So she can break objects.
No. Make this count.
Ah! I still got 3 stars, it's fine. Just hanging out with my cat. Well, yeah, when you see how successful the Nolan movies were, they made the right decision. Yeah. But it still would have been nice to have more DC content, though. Because what DC does is when things don't go well, they pull the plug. Which I've always hated that about DC. And then they make people wait for a very long time for something to come back. I hate that. They've always been like that since I was a kid.
Not so tough now, are you?
Ow. Kick. How much of a space of time was there between Batman Begins and Batman and Robin? Hello, the Bat of Vengeance. How's it going? How many years after? Okay. So, after 1997, it took them 8 years to get their crap together after Batman and Robin to release Batman Begins. It's 8 years. And they went through several drafts of Batman stuff. There was going to be a Batman Year 1 movie. There was going to be all kinds of stuff. As early as like 2003, 2004. Or not, actually, no, not. I think it was as early as 2001 and 2003. And then by 2004, they settled on Chris Nolan's script, and that became Batman Begins, which released in 2005, 8 years after the terrible 1997 Batman and Robin movie. Yeah, I kind of wanted to see Darkseid versus Henry Cavill's Superman. That would have been cool. Oh well. Didn't happen. Missed opportunity. I don't think... Did I ever do the challenge maps for Batgirl? I don't know if I did.
Simulation activated.
Mm-hmm. I've heard that, you know, DC and Star Wars tried to do a crossover in the 90s that didn't end up panning out. Yeah, I remember hearing something like that. It was back when Marvel and DC were doing, like, mini crossovers, and then they did a giant crossover later on. It was right around that time. It was very common for comic books, because comic books were trying to find new ground and stuff in the 90s. So crossovers was the big thing. The amazing scene between Ben Affleck's Batman and Jared Leto's Joker. Yeah, it was a pretty well acted scene. But it teased so much of that. The thing that looking back on the Snyderverse, what I don't like about it is it teased so many things that we never get to see actually come to pass. I don't like when people are teasing things like that and then they don't happen. Bothers me. Oops. Because I had that happen a lot. DC went through so many different types of film teases over the years that, like, whenever people are like, oh wow, look at the lineup of movies, I would always tell people, you're not gonna get that. When the Zack Snyder fans were all like, you know, wow, look at this huge slate of films that we're gonna get, it's like, that's not a guarantee. Because, like, I've already been through this. When they show lots of, DC movies that are in the pipeline. Does anybody remember in like 2005, 2006, they had several pictures lined up that they were showing at Comic-Con or whatever that were going to come out eventually. Like they had a Green Lantern movie that would eventually release, and they had all this other stuff. They had different icons of, you know, important DC characters, like their not connected universe, but films that they planned on making about DC characters, and they only ended up doing Green Lantern. They canceled everything else. And then in 2013 they started again. Then we were supposedly going to get a Cyborg movie. We were going to get all this stuff, and we never really did. So I don't like it when they I kind of like how James Gunn is doing things, and he's not going like too crazy with, okay, this is what you can expect from DC, these are all the projects that we're going to do, and he's just keeping it pretty simplified. And I think that's for the best, because that's one of the things that I've been irritated as a DC fan for years, is when they do that kind of stuff. It's like, yeah, we're going to do this, and we're going to do that. It's like, really? Because it never happened. Like, so many of your projects ended up getting canceled, so tell me again when that happened. Because I've been waiting a long time for a Nightwing movie. Very long time. What happened to the dude with the gun? Whoops. Well, I can tell you what'll happen, most likely. If James Gunn's Superman and follow-up films bomb, then probably what David Zaslav's going to do is he's going to go back and bring Henry Cavill and Ben Affleck back. Or Walter Hamada or something like that. And be like, well, when these guys were making movies, they were at least making over 600 or 700 million of film. So why don't we do something with this again? And I think the reason why a lot of fans are not on board with a lot of stuff with DC right now is the Henry Cavill fans are upset because they didn't get closure of the character. Ben Affleck fans are upset because they didn't get closure for the character as well. And sometimes in life it just doesn't work out that way. You know, that's just, life is full of lots of disappointing things. But sometimes people, they're like, I don't really want to go through that type of disappointingness, you know? I don't want to feel that way. I don't like how this makes me feel. But that's life, though. Sometimes good things happen, and a lot of times more terrible things happen. It's just how it is. But that's where a lot of this stuff happens with the Snyder fans, is they always say, you know, we want closure, and we want this, and we want that. And that's why they're not open to new things. If they would have done a proper send-off to Henry Cavill's Superman, like if he would have showed up in The Flash or something, then I don't think people would be as angry. Like if people would actually gotten to say goodbye. Like people don't really bring up Ben Affleck anymore after The Flash because people got to say goodbye to his Batman, basically. He had a really cool motorcycle stunt. His costume was ridiculous, but we got to see, you know, some pretty cool stuff with him. Plus, his Bruce Wayne scene had a lot of heart to it. Explaining to Barry that you don't want to do this kind of stuff. And saying how, you know, our scars define us. That's a great Bruce Wayne sequence, you know? So, I hear very few Batman fans saying that they want more from Ben Affleck because they feel like they had a satisfying conclusion to his story. Did he get his own solo movie? No. But it feels like his story was kind of wrapped up. With Henry Cavill's Superman, you had this huge tease with Black Adam versus Superman, and you never got that. And if fans would have gotten that movie, maybe... Who knows? Whoops. I messed up. But I also know there's a lot of DC fans that didn't like grumpy Henry Cavill Superman, so they really like David Cornsweet. They like that version of Superman. They want Superman to be the opposite of Batman. They want him to be this caring, optimistic, happy guy. They don't want grumpy Superman.
Simulation activated.
Hmm? Is that you, Trayvon? Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, I'm not. Amber and I got in a little thing tonight too because we're counting down the days that we worked very hard for this new company, and she's worried that the new company's not going to pay us. And it's in the back of my mind. It is. Like, I worry about it. I don't say it out loud, but I totally worry about it because we're how many days away? What is today? Today's now the 15th. We're supposed to get paid on the 16th or 17th by YouTube, and what happens if we don't get paid again? You know, and we didn't make that much money compared to like what our bills and rent is. Like the channel barely made $1,000 over the course of, I think it was June 23rd through June 30th. So that doesn't even cover our rent, but that would help with some of our bills. But both of us, because we haven't been paid for 2 months, you know, we're very kind of skittish, like don't know what to think. It's like every company at YouTube we're like very distrusting of. We don't think they're going to pay us ever again because it's been 2 months of no income. The last paycheck that we received from YouTube was April earnings, which we got in May. We haven't gotten our May earnings, and we haven't gotten our June earnings at all. So we're, you know, for me, I've become a pretty jaded, angry person over the past, like, almost month. I've changed dramatically online, and I've been online for 18 years as a content creator. So that my villain arc feels like it's starting because I'm becoming a very aggressive and angry person because, you know, I'm very distraught, I'm very concerned, and all my backup plans failed. Like, I was planning on taking out loans and business loans. All that was denied. If it wasn't for you guys on Patreon, Amber and I would have been homeless.
Simulation activated.
It's that simple. So, like, I'm hoping that this Portuguese company will pay us, like they promised, but I don't trust them. So, I don't know what to do, you know? I'm having a lot of problems with trusting people right now. That's what it feels like for me, though, is I'm just like, you know, kind of constantly looking over my shoulder, and I'm like, oh man, you know, I hope they pay us. I'm getting kind of nervous, you know? It's very concerning. And Amber and I have different ways of approaching things, but she's upset. I'm upset too. I think she has a right to be upset, though. That's not going to be enough. Nope. Oof. You have to do this sequence perfectly.
I'll break every bone in your freaking body.
Oh, that guy had the gun. Oops. I should probably restart again.
Simulation activated.
What? I mean, oh, the DC thing needs to be studied because DC panicked. They, instead of listening to what their fans wanted, they listened to what the critics wanted, because the critics wanted a DC universe that was more in line with what they were doing with the MCU. They wanted more jokes. They just wanted that stupid popcorn flick thing. And Zack Snyder is a guy, when he makes his movies and his plan is to, like, connect everything, then he makes sure that the films are very, like, connected. Not just loosely connected like the MCU. Like, seeing the events of Man of Steel play out at the beginning of BVS was incredible. Like, to see everything from the perspective of Bruce Wayne's eyes was very interesting. And if you play the battle between Henry Cavill and Zod, and you can match up the fight with the camera angles for Zod and Superman, you can match it up with what Bruce Wayne is seeing on the ground. That's amazing cinematography. If DC and Warner Brothers would have actually listened to what Zack Snyder had planned and what the fans wanted to see, I don't think they would be as big financial trouble that they are now. They got out of bed with Snyder because they got scared based on the reception being a little bit too dark. Had they stayed the course, we would have gotten the Reverse Flash. We would have gotten the DC Universe to basically wipe itself pretty quickly. You know? Like, the plan for Snyder was always, he was intending to pass the baton to somebody else. He was going to make his 6 pictures, and then that would be it. And the DC Universe would end up having a complete clean slate after 10 years. Not even 10 years. I think it was after 5 years is what his original plan was. There wasn't going to be even a 10-year thing. So if they would have just... Warner Brothers would have just hung on for like 5 years, they would have had the Flash movie earlier, which would have been better. They would have had the Wonder Woman 3 movie, which would have been better. They wouldn't have had the Harley Quinn film, which was terrible. And they wouldn't have had some of those weird things. We would have had Ben Affleck's Batman movie. If the plan was always to reboot the franchise after 5 years or something like that, they should have stayed with Snyder. Because it sounded like he had a plan. Because when Walter Hamada and other people came in, it didn't sound like they had a plan whatsoever. Oops. No, he always basically planned on killing off Dick Grayson. Zack Snyder bumped heads with Warner Brothers so much over the whole Dead Robin thing. Warner Brothers and DC put out actual physical content, like books and stuff, like the where Batman has been for 20 years and things like that. And they had the Dead Robin they mentioned in the novel was Jason Todd. So DC and Warner Brothers were trying to pull the wool over Snyder's eyes as early as BVS. They did not like the idea of Dick Grayson being the Dead Robin, because then they couldn't make the Chris McKay Nightwing movie. And all this other stuff. They couldn't have a Bat family show up in the first solo Batman movie, which is what they really wanted. They wanted to do the Arkham thing, and again... Zack Snyder had his own vision in mind for Batman and his journey and Batman's end. Like, Batman was supposed to die at the end of Justice League. And then his son would end up becoming the next Batman. It would be a time skip. That was the whole thing, is Batman was going to die fighting Darkseid like in the comics. Which Batman did confront Darkseid. Shoot, I lost. Yeah, I lost again big. That's it. Well, I might, if it's not 4, I might be able to pull it off. It's 4 though, isn't it? Yep, lost again. This is very hard to do as Batgirl. If they were scared of having Robin in the movies, then the Batman movie that not Matt Reeves, the Batman movie that James Gunn wants to make, why would they have Damian if they're scared about Robin? Most people don't like, they don't hate Chris O'Donnell's Robin. They just don't like Chris O'Donnell's Robin and Batman and Robin. They liked his portrayal in Batman Forever. Most people I know had nothing but good things to say about Chris O'Donnell's Robin and Batman Forever. I liked Chris O'Donnell's Robin and Batman Forever. I thought it worked pretty well. The only thing I didn't like is that they made the Flying Graysons was like this whole literally family with like cousins and nephews. It was too much. You don't need like to murder 5 people for it to have just as big of an impact as losing your mom and dad. Like, that was weird to me. That was too comic booky. It was like, okay, tell me you don't understand the source material without telling me you don't understand the source material. So that was weird. Well, I mean, it's no stranger to anybody, but the Superman thing that you saw and the Supergirl thing that you saw, James Gunn is a huge fan of Grant Morrison. So right now you're getting Grant Morrison stuff in animation and in, James Gunn's writing style is very similar to Grant Morrison. Which, if it's given time to breathe and they don't reboot again, like, we could be in for some great storytelling, which will rival the MCU. Because the MCU is going to have its head back on straight for 2 movies. And then they're going to continue down the rabbit hole of activism. Like, they can't stop. They're too far in that they can't do it. And the fact literally that they have Robert Downey Jr. telling people if you don't like Ironheart, then you're racist. Like, who does that? You know? So James Gunn, because his movie wasn't woke, he has a very unique opportunity to steal something major from Marvel for once. But we'll see if the Superman movie has legs, because right now it hasn't even made back its budget yet. So the Superman movie needs to have legs for it to do really, really well. Like, it has to make at least at least 700 million worldwide. Because it was 255 million to make the movie. They had a marketing budget of 150 million. So that's almost 400 million right there. And then they had, like, merchandising was another 100 million. There's a lot of merchandise for the Superman movie. So that's almost 500 million right there. So to barely even make back any profit whatsoever, they'd have to do at least 750 million. But anyway, I keep losing, so I'm going up to the front of the TV with Link. I'll be back.
Simulation activated.
There we go. All right, 3 stars. That was annoying to do because Batgirl doesn't have a lot of gadget variation compared to some of the other characters, so I really had to dig deep for that one. My bad. Well, I mean, you know, some people really want to see Ben Affleck's Batman movie, but what I said about him in The Flash is a lot of fans of Ben Affleck's Batman, myself included, we got some type of closure. We got to see the character one last time. He did an awesome action sequence on the bike, but he had a crappy batsuit. I wish he had his BVS batsuit. His new batsuit that Walter Hamada approved looked terrible. It was nice to see the blue and gray, but it just... I don't know what happened to it. They went a little bit too far with it, but he had a cool sequence on the motorcycle. The scene with the lasso of truth wasn't really needed. That was kind of dumb. I did not like that. That was kind of like, you took this great... It felt like a James Gunn thing. Like, you have this amazing set piece for this motorcycle chase sequence through the streets of Gotham City. And then you're going to ruin it with all this, like, sexual humor and stuff and awkwardness with Batman and the lasso when the Flash came in and just made it worse. And nobody in the audience even chuckled. Like, people were just kind of like, this is dumb. This is, like, so juvenile. But then they brought it back with Barry and Bruce went out to dinner, and they had, like, a very heart-to-heart thing where Bruce was basically describing how our scars is what define us. Like, our tragedy, our pain, it's important to our character growth as, you know, adults and things like that. And to remove that completely, it diminishes who you are. Like, basically, the stuff that you went through to get to where you are defined who you are today. So Bruce was trying to give Barry a little pep talk and, you know, make things better. And Barry was very impatient, and he did the time travel anyway because, you know, the court thing wasn't working to his favor with proving his father's innocence and stuff like that. But I felt like, as a Ben Affleck fan, even though I would have loved to see the Deathstroke versus Batman thing, at least we got to say goodbye to Batman. We didn't really get to say goodbye to Henry Cavill. Henry Cavill teased us as a great thing coming with Black Adam versus him, and then that was completely swept under the rug. And I felt really angry for Henry because Henry was under the impression that he was going to get to return, and they didn't write a contract for him. They should have written up the contract, then James Gunn couldn't have fired him, and he would have been Superman again. So, you know, there's so many things that Warner Brothers does that just really irritates me, you know? But, you know, I'm in the same position as Henry Cavill. Like, with YouTube, for instance, there's nothing written down that I'm going to be paid this week. You know, I've been trying to get things in writing and things like that, but I, too, am falling for people's like, oh, you know, well, we've worked together in the past, so everything's going to work out now. It's like, I don't believe so. Blinky, what are you doing? Ow! Where are you going? Come here. Come here. Come here. Link! What are you doing? Where are you going, weirdo?
Simulation complete.
Yeah, Ben and like, the Flash ruined that sequence with, like, Ben being all shy and stuff because he likes Diana, Diana likes him. And then Barry touching the lasso just made it worse because it was just like... It's like, you have to let the scene grow. You can't just tease us with something and then do something completely random afterwards. It was such a Gen Z move that it really brought me out of the movie, like, when I saw that. Because I thought the lasso scene with Batman and Wonder Woman was kind of sweet and funny in its own regard because Batman's a very stoic, quiet character. Linky. It worked, but then when Barry came and he grabbed the lasso too at the same time, it just made the scene even more awkward and stupid. It took away that great Wonder Bat moment and just completely erased it with the stupid Flash moment about, like, him never getting lucky or something like that. I was just like, Link! Link! What are you doing back there? Come here. Okay, I have to get Link. You can't be back there. Okay? You can't go back there. Yeah, it wasn't pure comedy gold, it was cringe. It was super cringe. Did not care for that. I was like, okay. Yeah, I don't think the Flash was needed in that sequence, yeah. He was busy taking care of the, like, he should have showed up after Wonder Woman left. Like, after Wonder Woman was leaving or something like that, and she was already putting the lasso away, then the Flash could show up and be like, alright, I did the hospital thing, I'm late for my thing. You know, he could do his awkward humor after that. He should never have touched the lasso. That was stupid. Stop that, Linky. People that can't do comedy need to stop doing comedy. Oh, I agree. 100%. But there didn't need to be comedy in that moment. We already had... Here's the thing with superhero movies in general, when they do comedic stuff like that. You already had the very comedic opening of him saving babies from the hospital. You didn't need to go from one joke to the next with the lasso section. They could have just stopped with Batman and him, you know, opening up and whatever, and left it at that. It would be like, oh, this is uncharacteristic for Batman, but he touched the lasso of truth. That would have been fine. And his awkwardness of smiling like a goofball or something, he could have got away with that, but what ruins that scene, watch that scene again on YouTube, what ruins the scene is Barry's involvement in the scene. It's unnecessary. It doesn't work. We just have to get 50,000? There we go. Score. I think Batgirl's gonna get a better score than Tim did. Link, if you keep this up, buddy, I'm gonna have to put you in the basement, because I don't know what you're doing. Maybe she got a better score than Tim, I don't know.
Simulation complete.
Yeah, I do view the Snyderverse and the DCEU as two separate continuities because of, like, the way that Batman acts in both universes is completely different. Like, his acting in the Snyderverse, he has a particular way of doing things. He's more, like, rigid and stoic, and, you know, he doesn't talk very much. And in Josh Whedon's DCEU and, like, his, like, different crossover roles, he acts more comedic. He acts like not so much loner, but just kind of like This guy that's bored at the party. Like, he's invited to the party and he's going to do his thing, but he's just like, he's just kind of the boring guy that's there. That's what it feels like. I did see the Penguin Show. Penguin Show was okay. I'm not really big into crime drama stuff. Also, the entire time I was watching the Penguin thing, I just wanted Batman to show up a little bit. If Batman actually was in the show, I think I would have liked it better. Because we'd actually know where he was during that time or something like that. It's like all this stuff is going on in the Penguin Show and he's nowhere to be seen. It's like, I don't know. It's a little weird for me. Originally, he was supposed to have a role in it, though, so I don't know why they decided to, at the last minute, like, no, we're not going to have him in the show at all. Like, he needed to be in the show. It would have helped with a lot of stuff. But I don't dislike Matt Reeves' The Batman. I thought he did some aspects of it really well. Some aspects I don't think he did very well. But... Oh, there's no Batgirl character model? Oh... Really? There's no Batgirl character model? That's crazy. I would think there would be. Henry Adams is so creepy. Everyone's favorite Joker girl. She feels like a Felicity character to me. Or, not Felicity. Yeah, actually, I think her name was Felicity, the girl from the Arrowverse. That's who she reminds me of. Also, doesn't she come from Queen Industries? Yeah, she does. So, yeah, she's Felicity Smoke-like character. Because she only has the one skin? Yeah. Alright, I'm spent, guys and gals. You did great on the short. But I'm gonna go to bed now, I think. Well, actually, I'm gonna make myself dinner and then I'm gonna go to bed. Because I'm exhausted. I have no idea what I'm streaming tomorrow. I say we go back to Zelda. We shoot for Zelda, and, I don't know if I want to do another, if I want to do... another Marvel Rivals? I don't think so. What day is it? Today is tomorrow. Is today Tuesday now? Yeah, today is Tuesday. Donkey Kong comes out on the 17th, so I have 2 days I have to plan content for, and I have no idea what I'm doing. The 15th and the 16th. I was hoping that Superman game would last longer than it did, but it didn't. Yeah, but anyway, I had fun with you guys. I hope you had fun. I enjoyed hanging out with you guys. I guess just trying to figure out what I'm gonna have for tomorrow. I don't think I'll have a stream to redirect you guys to. I'll figure out something. If you guys want more Batman though, again on the O1 channel, this is where you stand as of right now. Still. You were at... Where is it? Ouch. After 1 day and 12 hours, you are 876 views. That is officially the worst performing episode of Arkham Knight so far that's released on the channel. Because after at least 1 day and 12 hours... the Mad Hatter episode got 1,000 views. You're still 200 plus views away from another episode of episode 6. So remember, guys, you can rewatch a video that's been posted every day, and it will get new views. So I would get on that, because like all I can do is I can post content, but like if I don't get paid for it, I'm not going to post the content. So That's how I roll. If it gets 1,000 views, I got paid. It was worth my time. If it doesn't get 1,000 views, I didn't get paid. It's not worth my time to continue it. So. Yeah, you can link the O1 channel. There's like 80 people here. You guys could easily get toward closer to another episode. But yeah, that's what's going on with that. Is it hasn't gotten anything. That's why, like, people are like, why do you do live streams instead of upload? Because uploads don't get views, and it's like, you have to remember, with the possibility of live streaming, there's always a possibility every stream that you're going to get a few super chats. So not only will you actually get paid for the stream itself through ad revenue, but also you'll get paid through super chats. It's a more lucrative thing than doing uploads, where if an upload doesn't hit and it doesn't get 1,000 views, well, that hour that you worked on that video, an hour you used to upload it, or whatever, that's gone. That's 2 hours that you wasted. So, and I still have a couple episodes left to edit, but I don't really have any incentive to edit it if, like, people aren't watching it. You thought that duplicate views don't count? It's every 24 hours. Every 24 hours, it's a brand new view. Yep. But people don't tend to want to come back and rewatch something they've already seen, though. That's the problem. But that's the secret to YouTube, is you know, you rewatch it every day for like 5-10 minutes or something like that. Pause it, and then come back the next day and continue it, or whatever, or don't continue. But if you're going to stop watching a video, instead of just dropping a video cold, pause it. That way YouTube thinks you're going to come back and watch it at a later time. That will improve its watch time. That'll improve a lot of stuff. If people are watching for like 5-10 minutes and they just drop the video cold, that really does impact a channel. It's best to pause the video, because then YouTube's algorithm thinks, oh, you're going to come back, instead of just dropping it cold. There's so many aspects of the YouTube algorithm that people have no idea. It's a very finicky thing. It's incredibly finicky. She really doesn't have a character model at all? That's crazy to me. Huh. Oh well. Alright, people. That's it. That's all. So you'll get another Batgirl stream tomorrow. I'm running out of renders for Batgirl, though, so we'll be doing some Predator stuff. And then we'll see where we go from there. Alright? I'm going to have to figure out what your streams are for tomorrow. Have a good night, guys. Thanks for hanging out.